My name is Christine Yelly. I'm a model of 40 years. I'm called a lifer. I'm the breast cancer disruptor. I'm a motivational speaker and a mother of two sons. As we talked about, I'm a breast cancer survivor and I have a concave chest. And so through storytelling and a 40-year career as a model, the modeling industry has embraced me and my story and what this looks like, which is my norm now. And so I'm going to be strutting the catwalk, hopefully with something very tight and fitted to show off, the beauty of being flat and concave after surviving breast cancer so that other women can feel just great and beautiful in their own skin. Because so often, our society just flashes all these, things around us that wants us to look like everybody else and wants us to be just like everybody else. And we're just not, we're all very different. And that can look different in many ways. And for a lot of breast cancer survivors or patients, that means they have a flat chest. So I'm going to continue my modeling journey. I was in New York yesterday for a photo shoot with American Cancer Society. Again, rocking the flat and, showing the world that we all look different and it's okay. And my self-worth is rooted in faith. It's not rooted in, outside accolades or what the world wants me to look like. And so, the more I continue to go on this modeling journey, the greater that I can have an impact on other women. And that's been a real principle and it's a real treasure for me. Very lucky.
I met Christine 4 years ago. And from the very first moment, I was truly inspired by her story. She had battled breast cancer, endured unimaginable challenges, and yet what stood out most was her mission to fight back, reclaim her life, and share her renewed confidence to empower women around the world. And at the time, Christine had just written a book about her journey, and she was working tirelessly to turn it into a movie. And guess what? Today, in 2025, that dream has become a reality.
Good kids.
Run, so just go. Do you know how I know? It's because you look away from me, and when you do look at me, I only see pity. I don't see love, and that's a sure way to ruin a woman's self-esteem.
I think that the kids would be happier if you were home more consistently.
I'm afraid I have to.
Movie's out, and it's called Hello Beautiful. It has been premiered at various film festivals and winning praise, awards, and accolades. And with breast cancer awareness month just around the corner, I cannot think of a better time to share Christine's journey with you. She had fought her way back, not only transforming her own life, but also becoming a beacon of hope and strength for millions of women. So stay with us to the end as Christine shares insights from her incredible journey, how she found the strength to rise, turn her pain into purpose, and inspire a worldwide movement of confidence, courage, and resilience. All this and more coming up. Hi there, and thank you for watching this video. If you love stories like me, help me by supporting this channel. Smash the like button, turn on the notifications, and do not forget to subscribe. Now, back to our story. You just so confidently talked about flat and walking the runway flat. Easier said than done. So I wanted to understand from your perspective.
Yeah.
That you're a breast cancer survivor and your body was not like this before.
Right.
That transition, right? It just didn't happen, right? That it happened and you're like, okay, whatever, I'll just move forward, right?
No. It definitely didn't just happen. And for me, I have kind of a unique story. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2012, I had mastectomies in 2013, and I had implants. And so I went from having, 41-year-old breasts to implants, which were kind of better. And it's so traumatic. But, but the implants for me gave it some levity. I was like, okay, well, I've got a lot of scars. It's not my tissue, but these are pretty.
Right.
And so it wasn't until last summer when I got a MRSA infection in the implants that I became concave. So I lived 7 years after breast cancer with implants. So I didn't have a concave chest.
Okay.
In fact, yeah. And so this is a new thing for me. And I've been modeling since I was 11, but now the modeling is changed dramatically, right? Because it went from being kind of looking whole, right? So to speak, if we're going to use a label.
Right.
Right? I mean, I looked like a woman. I looked the same in essence. My hair grew back after chemotherapy and I had these breasts and I looked kind of like me again. And now after last summer, I look different. And so it's a process, right? It's a process to digest that extreme. That was extreme. We're not talking about like getting a tooth pulled. We're talking about removing your breasts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
As a woman, that's an extreme thing that we go through. And it's not that easy to digest, but it is a mindset for one. It's how you digest it. It's how you talk to yourself. It's how other people talk to you. And I'll give you a really short but interesting example. Right when I went concave, again, because of this MRSA infection, I have a big social media presence. And so I posted a picture after it was done and a fitted type of shirt. I can't remember exactly, but somebody commented on that post and said, were you born a man or a woman? And it was a little bit raw for me at that moment because it was raw for me because it just happened. And I was still trying to get used to it. And I looked in the mirror after he said that and I was like, am I lying to myself? Because am I feeling confident about this when I shouldn't? Should I be ashamed of this? It made me question how I was responding to it. And it took me about 3 or 4 days to respond to that man on social media. I didn't want to react. I didn't want to, when people give you negativity or anger, it's super easy for us to fly off the handle and react and be like, how dare you? And whatever. I don't want to put that out into the world. There's enough of that. There's enough people that do that. That's not who I am. And so I wanted to react out of grace and be honest and vulnerable. And so it took me like 3 days and I cried. There were tears because it shook me. And I asked some friends and family and I said, should I be looking at this differently? Do I look like a man? And they were like, it's his problem. And I know that. I knew that.
Right.
But I needed to ask other people because he brought up the question. And so I did respond to him eventually, like 3 days later. And I all I said was, why did you ask me that? And he goes, forget it. I don't, it's no big deal. And I let it go. But how we respond is one part of this. How other people respond is the other part of this. We can't control how other people respond. And if somebody thinks I look like a man, I don't care. But a lot of women don't feel that way. That probably, but I'm so rooted in self-esteem and it's taken me a long time. I'm so rooted in faith that I'm a little bit unshakable, but most people aren't. And that's why I love to talk about self-esteem because there was a time in my life at the age of 40 before I was diagnosed with cancer where my self-esteem was a 0. I was bullied by a doctor. I went through great trauma with my arm and this doctor he abused me, but I allowed him to abuse me because I had no self-esteem. He told me that the pain and swelling in my arm from an infection was in my head. I believed him. He told me that I was a hysterical housewife, although I'd never shed a tear in his office. I believed him. And so, to go from that kind of self-esteem, which, I felt no self-worth, which by the way was interesting because I was almost at, a greater time of my modeling career, but I didn't feel worthy of the career. I didn't feel worthy of the attention because I didn't feel worthy inside myself. To go from that to now where I've concave chest and I'm like, I don't care. That's a lot of introspection. That's a lot of time spent rooting myself in faith. What does that mean? Right?
taking the voices out of my head that told me I was unworthy. Those are comments that I used to say to myself, and taking those thoughts captive in my own head and saying, no, I'm not going to live like that anymore. And a lot of that work, it's hard. And a lot of people just say, forget it. I'm not going to do it. But I knew I needed to do that because my faith was so shaky that I was on quicksand. I was dependent on the external. I was dependent on the material world. I was depending on the modeling industry that told me, yes, you're good. No, you're not. That was my stronghold. And we all have idols in our life. And when you are struck with tragedy, your idols are going to come up really quickly, because if your idols are not rooted in something really strong, you're going to sink. It's quicksand. And so I had no choice. I had to shift my perspective. I had to change with voices in my head. And I had to change who I was listening to, like tolerating a bully doctor. That was never going to happen again. But I had to change. I had to do the inner work to not let that happen. And so that guy, he shook me for a couple of days because it was new. And I was in emotional pain, but I was in great physical pain. And when you're in great physical pain, you're very sensitive. And it's hard for you to have a bird's eye perspective. All you can see is what's in front of you. And oftentimes what's in front of you is still a little bit cloudy. And so I didn't have that, 30,000 foot view looking down going, who cares what that guy thinks, right? And so although it shook me for 3 days, after the 3 days, I was like, okay, that comment is out of my life. Any comment, any hater that comes into my life now, I'm good. But a lot of people aren't. And that's why I love to speak. So yes, yeah.
Breast cancer is one of the most common cancers in the world, affecting millions of women and men each year. It is the most commonly diagnosed cancer globally and is the leading cause of cancer death in women. According to World Health Organization, in 2022, there were estimated 2.3 million new cases of breast cancer diagnosed worldwide, resulting in approximately 670,000 deaths. Christine's journey reminds us that breast cancer doesn't just affect the body, it challenges everything you know about yourself. And while every story is unique, it also highlights the importance of separating myths from facts, because misinformation can cost lives.
The best thing about being tough is that you're tough, right? You can do a lot of things. But I think sometimes the worst thing about being tough is that everybody thinks you're tough. You don't need help. So I think everybody needs help.
That can be pride and ego too. Because when I was diagnosed with cancer, I didn't feel like I was worthy of people's time and attention.
Right.
I didn't feel like people giving up 15 months of their life, because I'd just gone from an major arm battle. It was 9 months of my life, and my arm was fused, and I became handicapped in my right arm. And I was just digesting that. And all of a sudden I was diagnosed with cancer. And my friends and family had taken me to doctor's appointments for months with my arm. And then all of a sudden I have cancer, and I'm like, I'm not worthy of their time. And they were giving up their resources, and my kids were young. And I'm thinking to myself, why? I don't want all this attention on me. We need the attention on my kids. And they were suffering. And so my self-esteem was just so low, and I didn't know how to ask for help because I was so insecure, and my pride and my ego was prohibiting me from asking for help. But if I just had said to myself, which is true knowledge, people who help you, people that serve you, they want to, because that's a shared experience with them. And if we just get rid of the pride and the ego and the lack of self-esteem by saying, oh, we're not worthy of this, everybody's worthy of it. Everybody's worthy of time and attention. Everybody's worthy of you listening to your story. And until we all realize that, until we all start listening to each other's stories, nothing's going to change. People can't understand what it feels like to be diagnosed with breast cancer if they haven't been diagnosed with breast cancer. But people can understand and be compassionate if I tell you my story.
Sure.
And everybody has something in their life they need to share. And if we can listen, then that's the grit and grace, right? That's the learning. But so often we're dismissed, like that doctor dismissed me and told me the pain is in my head. And when you're dismissed, that's bullying. And then there's no compassion, there's no empathy, and then we feel alone. And then our crisis gets more critical. Because when you walk through trauma alone, the crisis is more critical. You got to have people around you.
breast cancer only happens if it runs in the family. False. In fact, most cases happen with no family history. Christine didn't expect cancer to disrupt her life, and many women don't. Truth is, most breast cancer cases are diagnosed in women with no family history.
So this badass attitude was there like a tipping point that you said, love the way I am, I'm just going to move forward?
I got there, right? But when I was diagnosed with cancer, I was not there yet.
Okay.
I was very, very, very much dependent on what I looked like. I was very much dependent on the material world. I was very much dependent on external accolades. And that place was very fleeting, very lonely, and very temporal. And so I had to get to know myself pretty quickly. When my hair was taken away, I felt like I was worthless. I mean, I was 90 pounds wet. I had just had a mastectomy. I was going through chemotherapy for months. I mean, just those drugs alone make you an emotional wreck. And then to, be forced to lose your hair and have mastectomy surgeries and all this going on when you're trying to be a mother and you're trying to be a friend and you're trying to be a wife and all these other things and just trying to live in this life. It's shocking, the disparity between what I looked like in the mirror and what society wanted me to look like. The disparity was so great that I couldn't figure it out. And so what eventually happened was that I let go of what society thought of me. And I let go of trying to keep up. I let go of trying to, go to the mall to buy something to make myself feel better because I felt bad. I felt so bad that I felt like I needed like temporary things. Well, those didn't work, and my hair, losing my hair, it was horrible. I hated it. But I was okay because my soul and my friends and my family, they still showed up for me. So they didn't show up for me because of what I looked like. They showed up for me because of who I was. And all of those lessons that I was learning, gave me this kind of inner strength to say, okay, well, the outcome we don't know, right? I didn't know if I was going to get over, I didn't know if I was going to live through cancer. I didn't know if it was going to take my life. I didn't know if chemo was going to kill me because sometimes it does.
Yes.
So when I stopped focusing on the outcome, like the loss of hair, and I just focused on every single day waking up and being an inspiration, and how I walked through those terrible tragedies, people were watching. And so I could have been in a victim mode, which I started off as, or I could have shown people what it looks like to have grit and grace and to be a leader in a very tragic moment. And when I transitioned from being a victim to that leader, I got more confident. And I started to build my faith and I started to build who I was inside because that's what mattered. And then you have these waves of like confidence that come. Like you've got this kind of like tornado from behind that's pushing you forward versus a tornado coming at you. And it's perspective, it's mindset, it's how you talk to yourself, and it's how you decide, these are choices, to handle the trauma. And man, I was in so much physical pain and so much emotional pain. I'm not dismissing what you go through. I was at the brink of death. But even at the brink of death was a choice to show my children either courage or victim mentality. And I decide what was I going to show them?
Only old women get breast cancer. False, as it can happen at any age. According to CDC, about 9% of new breast cancer cases in the US occur in women under the age of 45. Christine was young, vibrant, and working in fashion when she was diagnosed. While risks increase with age, breast cancer can and does affect women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s.
There's so many people that you come across who cannot do what you have done, right?
Yeah.
They cannot. So yes, it is a choice. Yes, it can be done. You have done it, and there's so many other people. But again and again, I see people who just cannot do it, right? I mean, do you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah. I think that by my storytelling and by me being able to share the vulnerability in the pain, it gives people courage in their own life.
Yes.
And maybe they are not looking for the stories. Maybe they're not looking to be encouraged. A lot of people get stuck, right? And I did too. I got paralyzed in the pain. But if you stay in that, you're never going to get out. And so for me, I had a new vision. I made my own quote. I said, okay, no, there's going to be purpose in my pain. I should trademark that. And I lived it.
You should.
But I lived it. And every single day that I woke up, even though I knew I was going to chemotherapy, I'd walk around the chemo room to the other patients and I'd sit with them. I'd be hooked up with my port and I'd walk around with the port, rolling the port with me. And I'd talk to the other patients and I'd try to encourage them. I was in the hospital last year for this MRSA infection when my chest cavity was excavated. And it was the middle of COVID. There was nobody in the hospital. There were 7 people on the floor. And I would go each day, knock on their door, and I'd say, how can I help you? What can I pray with you for? Whatever. That wasn't about me. It had nothing to do with me. I knew what it felt like to be in so much pain that I was afraid to live another day. And when people showed up for me, they showed me what that real, cheering on looked like. And so if I could lighten somebody's load in the hospital last summer, or I could lighten somebody's load at chemo, wasn't about Christine Handy. It was about serving. And, I went from being so self-indulgent when I was a model, right? To being so serving and not caring so much about the promotion and the PR. And that was my life. It was very transactional when I was a model. It was, how can I get to bigger clients? And, I was stuck in that for so long. But when I was faced with the trauma, I could have stayed in that, right?
Right.
But I wanted to get out of it because I knew happiness. There are a lot of happy moments I had, but I hadn't felt joy. And when I started to serve and when I started to show up for people and when people started to show up for me, I started to feel joy, even in pain. I started to feel a different type of joy. And I was like, I want more of that. I'm going to keep going towards that. That light I want to go towards. And that was faith. That was friendship, and that was joy.
If you find a law, it's always cancer. False. Not every law is cancer. Not every law must be checked. In fact, about 80% of breast lumps are benign. However, that does not mean they should be ignored.
With so many young people out there now, and this whole age of social media and Instagram, you talked about, so when you're a model, being self-indulgent, right?
I think it's an inside job. At the height of my modeling career, when I was the most beautiful I've ever been in my life, I was 23 years old. I was modeling I was a guest model, right? I was modeling in Barcelona. I was living in the elite modeling agency. I had zero self-worth. I thought I was ugly. I thought I was fat. It's an inside job. I am so scarred. I have scars all over my arm. I have a fused arm. I'm handicapped. I have scars all over my chest. I've never felt more beautiful.
Oh, wow.
It's an inside job.
I have never spoken to someone who has given the inside job a new meaning, a good meaning.
It's true though. I mean, how many times have you gone out and bought something and you're like, oh, this is going to make me feel better? Or gone out to go get a drink or gone out to a social event and talked, and had a lot of fluff and not real conversations, but small talk. Did that ever make you feel better?
No.
Did that ever fill you up?
No.
It's depleting. And I'm not saying don't go to social events. I love a good social event. But unless I'm having a meaningful conversation, it's not going to fill me up. I don't have time for that. I'm focused, right? So I don't do fluff conversations. I don't do small talk. And I don't have much of a social life because I'm on a mission to help more and more people. But I think it's so true of when you ask yourself, did this fill me up? Does this relationship fill me up? Does this platform, does this social media, does this Instagram fill me up? Do I get enough likes? Do I get enough comments? Man, that's quicksand. That's quicksand.
Healthy lifestyle equals no breast cancer. False. It does lower the risk, that does not eliminate it. Christine was fit, healthy, and active. But diet and exercise, the lower risk, they do not eliminate it. Cancer does not discriminate.
It's quick set. So, what would you tell? I mean, if you had to tell people three things, and I think with a lot of younger people, this is a big issue. And obviously, when I was younger, I feel more confident now than I did 20 years ago. And of course, with experience and age, you learn quite a few things.
Of course. Mhm.
With some of the younger people who get sucked into this world of all of that, what are the three things you would like to say to them so they can also start working on that inside job early on, not wait for something bad to happen? What would you say?
Well, this is a little bit of a cliche, but whoever you surround yourself with, you become.
Sure.
Whatever you meditate on, you become. Whatever voices you hear in your head, like I'm worthy or I'm pathetic, I am strong or I am weak, whatever voice that you hear, that's what you become. And so for me, I had those voices of you're pathetic, you're worthless, you have no value, you lost your hair, you lost your external beauty, you lost your arm, you lost your wrist, you allowed that doctor to bully you. Those voices, they consumed me. But once I realized that those voices weren't serving me, and God was bigger than that. And my faith was stronger than that. And I needed to have a different idol. Then my whole world changed. I started to talk kindly to myself. And so self-talk is critical. How you talk to yourself and take those thoughts captive. Like if you say to yourself, you're not worthy, meditate on that. Where does that come from?
Yeah.
Why do you feel that way? But spend time in that and ask yourself questions. The second thing is self-esteem. Self-esteem is a muscle. So like you go to the gym to work out your muscles. I go to Harvard right now. I'm getting my master's degree in creative writing. I'm getting my master's degree because I had horrible chemo brain. And I could hardly put two sentences together after I was done with chemo. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to fix this, or at least try to. So I'm going to go back to school. And that has really helped me. So, you go to the gym to work out. You go to school to work on your brain or do puzzles or crossword puzzles or read. All those things help. I work on my self-esteem every day. I have positive self-affirmations. I have positive self-talk. I pour into Oprah's Super Soul Conversations. Because what you hear, you become as well, right?
Sure.
If I put on any news platform in the country right now, by the end of the day, I would be so depressed. It's fear-based. It's depleting. It's not encouraging you. It's basically saying you're worthless and your choices are wrong. And we know better what you should do with your body, with your life, your choices we should do. And so I'm not turning that on. I'm going to listen to podcasts from preachers that I honor and respect. And I'm going to listen to my own voice. So I think those three things, I think who you surround yourself with, who you're listening to,
Right.
the voices in your own head, what you're saying to yourself, and work on your self-esteem. It's a practice. It didn't take me a year to go from being dependent on my external to being dependent on my internal. It didn't take a year. It took several years. But it was also a choice for me to do that introspection. It's important to do that so then you can help other people with it. But most importantly, you have to help yourself first.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. All 3 points. And there's a famous saying, you show me your friends and I'll show you where you will be in 10 years.
Exactly.
I totally agree with all the 3 points you mentioned. But I'm going to challenge you a little bit. Okay.
I'm always up for a good challenge.
There are people out there who will say, hey, you know what Christine just talked about is a lot of woo-woo talk. I've heard that, because I'm a big supporter of all you talked about. Any suggestions on people who think that all this mumbo jumbo is just for books and it doesn't work? And anything you want to add or say?
I think judgment is one of the worst things we can do. I think that our world is being swallowed by people judging other people. If people watch this and they don't agree with me, I respect them. And I'm not going to disagree with them because we all have to find what it is that we're rooted in. We all have to find what it is we idolize. And for me to say you should idolize this and not that is not serving other people. I can only tell you how I got through it. And I'm going to keep telling my story. And if that feeds you, great. If it doesn't, turn it off.
Lastly, thanks for sticking around till the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. And if you did, smash the like button, turn on the notifications, and subscribe. And I will see you soon with other stories. As someone once said, the universe is made up of stories, not atoms.
2 decades ago, model Christine Handy was at the top of her game. She was working for brands like J. Crew, Guess, and Pepsi. And at the age of 41, she was diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer. She won her battle and then realized she had a new purpose in life to inspire others. And we are so grateful to have her with us this afternoon. Christine, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to see you. You have been through so much, but